always dreamed of becoming a dancer, but my parents wanted me to be a doctor. When I finally followed my heart, they disowned me. Now I'm living my truth. It was devastating for both me and my mother, Samantha, 55F. My dad was a successful businessman with a great reputation in our community. We were incredibly close, and I always looked up to him as my role model. The funeral was tough, but we got through it with the support of family and friends. Almost 2 weeks after we laid him to rest, my mom and I were trying to adjust to our new reality when a woman named Audrey, 57F, approached us. Audrey asked to speak with us privately, and we agreed, not knowing what to expect. What she told us next turned our world upside down. She claimed that she had been having an affair with my father for the past 10 years. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman, who was slightly older than my mom, was telling us that my dad had been unfaithful for a decade. As if that wasn't shocking enough, Audrey revealed that she had a son, 28M, who was just 2 years younger than me. Audrey then broke down, crying in front of my mom. She said that my father had promised her a part of his inheritance because he loved her so much. I was furious. How dare this woman come to us with these claims when we were still grieving? My mom, on the other hand, seemed more shocked than angry. She's always been a bit gullible and tends to believe people easily. I could see the confusion and hurt in her eyes as she listened to Audrey's story. Audrey continued her sob story, saying she didn't want to go public with her demands for a share of the inheritance because it would tarnish my late father's reputation. But the way she said it felt more like a threat than a considerate gesture. It was clear she was trying to manipulate us. I couldn't take it anymore. I flat out rejected her request, telling her that we didn't believe her story and that she wouldn't be getting a cent from us. My mom, however, surprised me by saying we needed time to think about it. I was shocked that my mom would even consider this woman's claims. I tried to reason with her, reminding her that we had no proof of Audrey's relationship with Dad or that her son was his child. But my mom seemed torn, probably because she's too kind-hearted and hates confrontation. Since that day, there's been tension between me and my mom. I refuse to entertain Audrey's demands, while my mom thinks we should at least look into her claims to avoid any potential scandal. I think my mom is being naive and that giving in to Audrey would be a huge mistake. I've been doing some digging on my own, trying to find any evidence of this. So far, I haven't found anything concrete. My dad's finances seem straightforward, with no suspicious transactions or hidden accounts that might suggest he was supporting another family. Despite the lack of evidence, my mom is still considering meeting with Audrey again to discuss her claims. I'm worried that Audrey might take advantage of my mom's vulnerable state and manipulate her into giving away part of the inheritance. I've tried to convince my mom to consult with a lawyer before making any decisions, but she's hesitant. She keeps saying she doesn't want to drag this through the courts and potentially ruin Dad's reputation posthumously. I feel like I'm fighting a battle on two fronts, trying to protect our family's legacy and financial security from this woman's claims, while also trying to shield my mom from being taken advantage of in her grief. The whole situation has put a strain on my relationship with my mom. We used to be very close, but now we're constantly arguing about how to handle Audrey's claims. I feel like I'm the only one thinking clearly in this situation, but my mom accuses me of being cold-hearted and not considering the possibility that Audrey might be telling the truth. I'm starting to feel like the bad guy in this situation. Am I being too harsh? Should I be more open to the possibility that Audrey is telling the truth? I just can't shake the feeling that she's trying to con us when we're at our most vulnerable. I'm worried about the potential legal implications if we do give Audrey any money. Could that be seen as an admission that her claims are true? Could it open us up to further demands or legal action in the future? The stress of this situation is taking a toll on my mental health. I'm still grieving my father, trying to support my mom, and now I have to deal with this woman threatening to destroy my dad's reputation if we don't pay her off. I've considered reaching out to Audrey's son directly to see if he knows anything about this supposed relationship between his mother and my father. But I'm afraid that might legitimize Audrey's claims or give her more ammunition against us. Part of me wants to call Audrey's bluff and tell her to go public with her story if she wants to. I'm confident that if she's lying, she won't actually do it. But I'm also scared of the potential fallout if she does go through with it, even if it's not true. So, Reddit, am I bad guy for refusing to give my late father's alleged mistress a share of his inheritance? Should I be more open to investigating her claims? Or am I right to stand firm and protect my family from what I believe is a con artist trying to exploit our loss? Update. After my last post, I decided to dig deeper into Audrey's background. I felt I needed to know more about this woman who claimed to be my father's mistress and was now demanding a share of his inheritance. I started by doing some basic research. It wasn't easy, but I managed to find some information about Audrey's past. The most significant thing I discovered was that her husband had died about 15 years ago. This was interesting because it lined up with the timeline of her alleged affair with my dad. I also got to know about some information that suggested Audrey had been struggling financially since her husband's death. There were reports of her facing foreclosure on her home and having trouble paying her bills. This financial trouble seemed to have lasted until around the time she claimed to have met my father. This information made me feel conflicted. On one hand, it could support her story. Maybe she really did turn to my father for help during a difficult time. On the other hand, it also made me wonder if she was just looking for a wealthy man to solve her problems. I decided to take a risk and reach out to Audrey's son. I was nervous about this, worried that it might somehow legitimize Audrey's claims. But I felt I needed to hear his side of the story. To my surprise, Audrey's son agreed to meet with me. We met at a local coffee shop, and I was struck by how much he looked like Audrey. He seemed uncomfortable at first, but as we started talking, he opened up. He told me that he knew about his mother's father. According to him, it had started when he was in his late teens. He said he was okay with it because he saw how happy it made his mother after years of struggling on her own. When I asked him about the inheritance issue, he became more defensive. He said he agreed with his mother that she deserved a share of my father's estate. He argued that my father had promised to take care of them and that it wasn't fair for us to go back on that promise now. I left the meeting feeling even more confused. The son's story seemed to corroborate Audrey's claims, but something still felt off to me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. I decided to take my investigation a step further. I started following Audrey discreetly, trying to learn more about her daily routine. For several days, I observed her comings and goings. Most of her activities seemed normal, but there was one thing that stood out. She frequently visited a local gym and stayed there for almost 4 hours each time. This struck me as odd. Even the most dedicated fitness enthusiasts don't usually spend that much time at the gym every day. I decided to look into this further. I enrolled in the same gym, choosing a membership plan that allowed me to visit at any time. For the next week, I went to the gym at the same time Audrey did, pretending to work out while keeping an eye on her. What I saw was surprising. Audrey would arrive at the gym, change into workout clothes, and spend about 10 minutes on a treadmill. Then, she would head towards the locker rooms. But instead of going into the locker room, she would slip out through a back door of the gym. Intrigued by this behavior, I decided to follow her. The next day, I positioned myself near the back door of the gym. When Audrey came out, I followed her at a distance. She walked a few blocks away from the gym, and then got into a car with a middle-aged man I didn't recognize. I watched as they drove away together. About 3 hours later, Audrey returned to the same spot. The man dropped her off, and she walked back to the gym. She went back inside through the back door, and about 15 minutes later, she left through the front door as if she had just finished a long workout. I repeated this surveillance for several days, and the pattern was always the same. Audrey would pretend to spend hours at the gym, but in reality, she was meeting this man. At this point, I was convinced that Audrey was not who she claimed to be. It seemed clear to me that she was running some kind of scam, possibly targeting wealthy men for their money. I decided it was time to confront my mom with what I had learned. I sat her down and explained everything: the research into Audrey's past, the conversation with her son, and my observations at the gym. My mom was shocked. She had been torn about whether to believe Audrey, but now she could see the evidence that Audrey was likely lying. She agreed that we needed to confront Audrey and her son with this information. Before confronting them, I wanted to make sure we had solid proof. I spent the next few days gathering all the evidence I could. I compiled financial records showing Audrey's past money troubles, screenshots of my conversations with her son, and even some discreet photos and videos of Audrey's gym routine and her meetings with the unknown man. Once I felt we had enough evidence, my mom and I invited Audrey and her son to our house. When they arrived, we sat them down in the living room. I could see Audrey was expecting another discussion about the inheritance. She had no idea what was coming. I started by calmly laying out everything we had discovered. I showed them evidence of Audrey's financial troubles after her husband's death. I recounted my conversation with her son, pointing out some inconsistencies in his story that I had noticed. Then, I revealed what I had seen at the gym. As I spoke, I could see the color draining from Audrey's face. Her son looked confused at first, then angry. When I finished, there was a long moment of silence. Audrey tried to deny everything at first. She claimed I was making it all up because I didn't want to share my father's money. But when I showed her the photos and videos I had taken, she broke down. Through her tears, Audrey admitted that she was devastated after my father's death. Not because of his death, but because she won't be able to get the financial help she got from him in return of her love and care, which obviously was conditional. She was hoping to get some money out of us. I was angry, but I tried to stay calm. I told Audrey and her son that we had recorded this entire conversation. I said that if they agreed to leave us alone and never contact us again, we wouldn't take this information to the police. Audrey and her son quickly agreed. They promised to leave and never bother us again. As they were about to leave, Audrey turned to us and apologized. She said she was desperate for money and thought we would be an easy target. I didn't say anything in response. I just showed them out. After they left, my mom and I sat in silence. For a while, we were both processing what had just happened. My mom thanked me for investigating and uncovering the truth. She admitted that she had been close to believing Audrey's story and potentially giving her money. I thought that would be the end of it. We had confronted Audrey, exposed her lies, and she had agreed to leave us alone. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Audrey had put us through so much stress and pain during our time of grief. She had lied to her own son, making him believe he had a relationship with my father. And who knew how many other families she had targeted with this scam? The next day, I made a decision. I gathered all the evidence we had, the recordings, the photos, the financial records, and I took it to the police. I filed a report explaining everything that had happened. When I told my mom what I had done, she wasn't happy. She was worried about how this might affect my father's reputation. I understood her concerns, but I felt I had made the right choice. I explained to her that by going to the police, we might be able to prevent Audrey from scamming other grieving families in the future. My mom was still unsure, but she didn't try to stop me. She said she trusted my judgment, even if she was worried about the potential consequences. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. The police investigated our claims and found evidence that Audrey had run similar scams on other families in nearby towns. They arrested her and charged her with multiple counts of fraud. Audrey's son wasn't charged with anything. The police believed that he was also a victim of his mother's lies. I felt sorry for him in a way. He had believed for years that he had a relationship with my father, only to find out it was all a lie. As for the man I had seen Audrey meeting at the gym, it turned out he was another wealthy widower she was targeting. When the police informed him of Audrey's arrest, he was shocked. He had believed he was in an exclusive relationship with her and had no idea about her scams. The case did get some local media attention, which was hard for us. Most people were sympathetic to us as victims of a scam, rather than judging my father. In the end, I felt relieved that the truth had come out. It was painful to go through, but I knew we had done the right thing by exposing Audrey's scam and potentially protecting other families from going through what we did. My mom eventually came around to see things my way. She said she was proud of me for standing up for our family and for doing what I thought was right, even when it was difficult. This whole experience taught me a lot. It showed me how vulnerable people can be when they're grieving, and how some people are willing to take advantage of that vulnerability. It also taught me the importance of trusting my instincts and not being afraid to dig deeper when something doesn't feel right. I'm glad I didn't give in to Audrey's demands, even when my mom was considering it. I'm glad I took the time to investigate and uncover the truth. And even though it was hard, I'm glad I went to the police with what I knew. Looking back, I can see how easy it might have been to just give Audrey some money to make her go away, but that would have only encouraged her to keep scamming other families. By standing up to her and exposing her lies, we not only protected ourselves, but potentially saved others from going through the same ordeal. As for my relationship with my mom, we went through this difficult situation together, and even though we didn't always agree on how to handle it, we supported each other. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my experience, it's this. Don't be afraid to question things that don't seem right, even if it's uncomfortable. And don't let fear or the desire to avoid conflict stop you from standing up for what's right. It might be difficult in the moment, but in the long run, it's always worth it.